BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and can we talk about how today's Beyblade reveals were absolutely insane? Okay, not entirely groundbreaking, but in terms of how everything was just set up for a bunch of things to be released like this all at once, it's kind of crazy that there's so much to go over that even I couldn't just talk about that in just a few shorts. Like, I actually want to talk about some of these in a few more details. Tenka's reveal of having a former Beyblade actually surprised me because I genuinely thought that she was going to get an upgrade. And I was pretty hesitant on thinking whether or not it would make sense for her to either get an upgrade or show this downgrade. I think the downgrade makes sense because it allows us to get a further insight on what Tenka's character was like growing up in the Shiraboshi household. I know the ending gave us a few glimpses into that detail, including the fact that I was probably happy. Plus, look at their flashback photo with her as a child. Like, Omega looks so sweet. Logi's probably just looking curious, and Mirion's probably the one taking the photograph of them. Like, it's so adorable. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how their relationship and how Tenka felt when her mother and them left impacted both her. And I want to know if she got the Beyblade before Omega left or after she left, because it would actually explain a lot about what Tenka had to go through before she ended up with Samurai Saber. The other side of me genuinely wanted to see Tenka with a new upgrade because given how the anime expanded upon her relationship with Persona and how she initially viewed their bonds as a weakness and as a tool to get stronger, though she slowly recognized that she wanted to help them grow and improve, hence why she even went to the idea of insulting Multi so that Multi could come back stronger than ever and actually understand Bird, and yet try to help him see through Raver's tactics, and showing that they shouldn't have to rely on X all the time for their battles. From what I saw with the anime, it looked like Tenka apologized to them after the Goldius battle, so it felt like a good opportunity for her to either get a new Beyblade by chapter 23, but I wouldn't be surprised if they held that off for later. But I want you all to let me know and tell me if you think Tenka should either get a new CX Beyblade that Multi created, or would you be fine with her just using Samurai Saber for the duration of the second season / arc 2 of the manga? The next thing I want to talk about is Bird's character in chapter 23 compared to chapter 22. It's not bad. After all, I actually like it. The idea of him working so hard to finally get his first official win in the manga, and yes, regardless of the circumstances, he did win that battle, only to find out that your opponent basically let you win and was holding back, and then proving it by taking on your strongest team member and actually managed to tie with him. Yeah, I really feel bad for Bird, since it genuinely felt like he thought that he had won by putting his all to it against an opponent who he thought was giving it his all. And yes, from the translation, it was confirmed that Logi and X tied in their battle. The angle just made it look like X was the one who lost, since we didn't really see it from Logi's angle until this chapter. Because on one hand, having Xu lose or tie with basically the second in command shows that, yeah, he still has a lot of work to do before he can master his new Beyblade. But on the other hand, even if it did raise the stakes, wouldn't it make more sense for him to lose against someone like Omega to show how far he has to come and why Tenka's so afraid of him? I guess it really just depends on if you feel it's a cop-out or not, but I think it's interesting to think about rather than just give a definitive, I think this or that, because it depends on how it plays out, but I still think it's an interesting point of discussion to be had. The other point of contention I saw was people going like, wait, why is Bird training with Mako on a boat? Again, this is going to have to wait until we get people who actually translate it in English. But I'm guessing it's probably Bird realizing that since Logi's Beyblade involves being very, very durable and having to work on stamina, he's probably working on improving his skills so that he can actually work towards having more spin-out finishes than actually just being able to focus on ringing out or being able to cause a burst finish while inside the stadium. So I actually like the idea of him using a boat, since the space is so limited and you have to focus on your skills and accuracy without trying to fall. And you know what? I've seen people point out how weird the type of training is, but let's not pretend Beyblade has had weirder versions of training before. Like, the original series had Tyson doing martial arts, people running around with their Beyblades in the forest trying to practice and improve. Then Metal had preteens and teenagers fighting and training in canyons, lifting up weights bigger than they should even feasibly do, doing more martial arts. Heck, Benkei had Zero and his generation lift up giant buckets of water to improve their arm strength, and had Zero running around the city with tires tied around him. Then you have Vault doing chores, Free lifting up a boulder, Aiga and Louie using that weird string machine to test their grip strength, whatever Drum was doing with Tango. And Bell using an aerodynamic suit to help him do more dive bomb attacks. Like, Beyblade has always had weird training techniques before, so it's just funny how this one is just like, oh yeah, another cool weird one. That being said, it does pose an interesting question, because if not Pendragon, but if Zodiac and Persona reach the final battle, who's gonna battle who? Based on what we have so far, I think Bird is going to try to fight Logi again to prove if he could actually beat him when Logi's taking it 100% completely seriously. Then I think Multi's going to fight Mirion. Like, I don't know why, but something is just telling me that these two are going to fight each other, even though we still don't know anything about him or his Beyblade. And then it's going to be both Tenka and Exu versus Omega. I feel like one of them is going to lose to establish, like, to the other how they could actually beat her. And the other one's going to take the lessons from whoever lost in order to probably defeat her. I'm okay with either person winning as long as it contributes, but yeah. And I think another factor is what led Omega to change between when she was raising Tenka and when she decided to betray the Shiraboshi style. Because based off this flashback, it implies that whatever her goals is when it comes to Beyblade, it was worth it so much that she either started shooting Tenka harshly or expected Tenka to follow her ideology and was extremely disappointed. If this is about Tenka trying to find her mother's light again and helping her get back to the way she used to be, or understanding her perspective more, I wouldn't mind either way if Tenka's impact managed to help Omega, change her sides. Like, Belle was the key to helping Pre recognize that she needed to save Pax, and while she didn't ultimately win against him, I think the problem is that if Pre had a longer battle with Pax, or they found a way to have Bell and Pre fight him at the same time, it would have made the finale feel less, like her story was robbed from her. So if Tenka manages to actually play a part, even if she isn't the one to defeat Omega in the end, as long as she contributes to her getting defeated, I think it makes sense, but it depends on the emotional weight they put behind what led to Tenka and Omega's relationship being so strained. Because Tenka absolutely wants to take her mother down. Like, you don't just go leave your dojo and actively form a team with people you think are powerful enough to help you in order to do something and to, go against your own family member. Like, there has to be something deeper going on there. But yeah, we get the fact that while Bird is busy training with Mako, which is actually a convenient way to write him out for now, the other three are going to be taking on Team Mist leaders, which what Logi and Mirion had planned for reasons. Again, I had a feeling that they were going to join as one team, given that we didn't get to see their other teammates. Though I wish we had them a little bit hyped up before, though I have to give the anime props for at least using their designs and setting them up early, since we probably knew that if they were going to do a combination like this, they would have to be their own unique Beyblades. My only real concern is how they're going to be handled, because with Dreams, I think Rex ended up being more fun thanks to the anime actually giving him a proper fight to show what he can do before he face off against X. Pakken has impacted the story in more ways than anyone expected in the anime. And while I think Queen is still a little bit overrated in terms of impact, it does make sense that she's retired. And I did like her perspective on passing the torch to the new generation and how the new generation is full of opportunities, given that she also believes in people like Bird, Multi, and Exu. It depends on the translations, and I know that Ryu also has a connotation for dinosaur in it, so I kind of like the fact that he's Tricera. But I think it really depends on what the translations say, though I really think Ryu is probably going to have something interesting to say to Exu in order to encourage him to either get stronger or find a way to tap into using his new drawn Beyblade to its maximum potential. So that could be an interesting conversation, especially if the anime fleshes out that battle more. Mr. Poisons will be fighting Tenka next. So Tenka's probably going to win, though he's probably going to be the meanest out of the three based on his design and outlook. Though, given this is X, I suspect he's not going to be as bad as he looks, just very, very serious and dedicated. I can see him playing a similar role to how Ryu acted towards Bird, though with a more focus on battle psychology than mentally taxing their opponent before the battle begins. And then there's the final member, Yoko, who will not be dueling, not dueling, Bay battling in Chapter 23. She's probably going to save her battle with Multi for Chapter 24. Her Beyblade also seems cool from what I've heard. And now that officially makes 12 Beyblade characters from X. Well, 11 if you think Ichigo doesn't really have her own Bey. But still, that's the most amount of female characters with their own unique Beyblade in the Beyblade franchise, which it's really crazy that it's gotten this far, but it's still cool that it's happened either way. Again, Multi's probably going to beat her, but I'm looking forward to see how the battle goes and whether to see who actually wins. But yeah, the downside to me not following the toys as much is that I don't really have much insight other than they look cool and I hope their gimmicks are pretty interesting to watch in the show. But yeah, Chapter 23 was an interesting read. It's really cool that we got all these reveals for new Beyblades, and while I talked about them in the shorts that I linked to before, it's really cool that the story's progressing, and I actually want to see how these develop. It was actually fun trying to think about like what's going to happen in the future, and I'm looking forward to see how the rest of the story progresses with all of these new developments and reveals. And I hopefully hope that these Bladers get a bit more of a fleshed out personality, given that I do like all of their designs, and I'm really looking forward to see how Tenka's role and Persona's role in the story actively improve. But yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below on what do you think is going to happen, and BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.